Hi, I'm Lisa Leiter. In Chicago Business Today, a faltering empire. Commanding a front-page headline in this week's Crain's is a man most Chicagoans have never heard of. But William McEnery's business empire was worth hundreds of millions of dollars at its peak. He was among the first to sell groceries at gas stations. He cashed in on the first wave of casino gambling in Illinois, and he also saw the development potential in Will County. But now McEnery is fighting for control of his businesses, which have taken a hit from both the recession and the real estate collapse. Steve Daniels wrote the story and joined me to talk more about it. So Steve, this is a fascinating tale of a business power on the South Side. Chicago bankers loan McEnery $365 million. That's a stunning amount of money. So what's going on now? He's falling behind on some of these loan payments?
Yes, he's had foreclosures filed against him by 8 different banks over the course of this summer. And there are other banks. Obviously, that's a minority of this roughly $365 million in total indebtedness. So he's clearly having serious problems paying back his banks and paying back some of his creditors.
There were so many banks involved, so much money involved. What were your sources telling you about this situation? How unprecedented is it?
Well, it's not totally unprecedented. I mean, there are other very closely held businesses that have a very substantial array of bank relationships, but it's rare. It's not something that happens all the time, certainly. Usually, middle market companies of this kind they can easily have several banking relationships on different sorts of their businesses.
Okay, so these foreclosure suits have been filed. What's the worst case scenario for McEnery here?
He's hired a bankruptcy attorney. It's hard to know without knowing more details that would be included in a bankruptcy filing, what sort of scenarios are present. But if he does go that route, he'll be able to keep control of Gas City and the gas stations under the bankruptcy process, and then it'll all have to be a negotiation.
And we should say that he did not speak with you for this story. He's kept such a low profile over the past 4 decades while building his business. Is he going to have a harder time staying out of the headlines now as this process unfolds?
Well, probably, yeah. I mean, especially if it goes to bankruptcy, which we should hasten to add, we don't know if that's going to be the case. But if it does go in that direction, then yes, he'll be there'll be press attention and the like. But yeah, he's been a very low-profile guy. He's been a very charitable figure down in the south suburbs. He's well known down there, and has had led a colorful life. He's raced stock cars. He's got a horse racing operation, harness racing operation he's been involved in for decades, and a fascinating figure.
What kind of impact would this ultimately have on all these banks that are involved?
Well, I mean, potentially they're going to have to take losses, depending on the collateral. Most of these banks loaned on the properties that the gas stations sit on. The values of those properties have fallen. If those banks take those properties back, they may very well have to incur losses on those loans.
And he doesn't just have these foreclosure lawsuits that he's faced with. He's got to deal with the Teamsters too. What's going on there?
He has a number of companies. One of his companies is called A.D. Connor, is a petroleum hauling firm that has Teamsters drivers. The Teamsters locals sued him for failing to make payments to their pension fund, but the company itself was shut down on Sunday. So the future of those jobs and that outfit appears bleak.
All right, Steve. Well, fascinating story this week. Encourage everyone to read it. Thanks so much for telling us a little bit about it.
Thank you.
And that's this edition of Chicago Business Today. Read Steve's story in this week's print edition of Crain's or on chicagobusiness.com. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.